Good morning.
And we want to, first of all, we want to thank you guys for getting up this early and doing this.
Yeah.
I know a lot of you guys came in on the red eye and all this, and we appreciate the fact that you guys are making that investment on yourselves and being here. As you can see, it's a pretty full room. We've got a lot of information. You guys are, if there's something you don't understand that we're saying, yes, you can ask the question. Other questions, please wait until the end. We're trying to allow 10 minutes for Q&A, and at which time when we announce that, we would prefer that you guys kind of queue up behind the center aisle microphone. And please, we're limiting it to one question per person because, if it turns out that there aren't that many people in line, then we go back in line and ask another question. First of all, I want to thank Sydney and Bob for the Great American Pitch Fest. I've been with them since the very beginning. I think I'm one of 2 or 3 speakers that's been here since the beginning. And I've watched it grow, and this year, their 10th anniversary, it is amazing to see what they've accomplished. In addition to having the Great American Pitch Fest, they've had 3 great Canadian Pitch Fests and the Great London Pitch Fest. So as you can see, they really started something that has gone global. And there are other things going on that they're working on. And in between that, they've also produced a movie too. So it's amazing all the things that have happened just in the short 10 years that this Pitch Fest has been in existence. We're going to start off. I'm going to have Laurie introduce herself. This is my friend and colleague, Scheer.
Thank you, Kathie, and thanks also to Siggy and Bob. I am not Carol Kirshner. She's absolutely wonderful, and she will be here later on this afternoon. She had a conflict, and Kathie asked me to be here, and I'm thrilled to be here. I also have another session later on this afternoon. Anyway, my background is both broadcast and cable networks, development, producing. It started at ABC a very, very long time ago when that was all there was, just broadcast networks. Worked my way up through Viacom, through MTV, Showtime, Nickelodeon, eventually became the Vice President of Programming for WeTV, Women's Entertainment. So I've run the gamut of broadcast and cable from being an assistant in development all the way up to VP. And since I've continued to produce programming for television, and now that has branched out into platforms, multi-platforms and transmedia, and how broadcast and cable networks are doing their best to make sure everybody's on all 3 screens. So my background is primarily in that, and I hope I can answer all of your questions and give you some information about what network, both broadcast, cable, and some web networks are looking for. And that's basically what we're here for. So, Kathie.
My name is Kathie Fong, Yoneda, and I also have kind of a similar background to Laurie's. I started off in feature films, but I did start off in the typing pool. And I won't tell you when, but it was a really long time ago. And it was kind of an interesting period because there weren't any Asians, there weren't any people of color. I could go walk for a week and not see a person of color on the whole lot. Anyway, a lot has changed, and with all the changes in my job. So I started off in a typing pool, worked my way up. I got as far up to as Laurie did, which I was a VP at Island Pictures. Most people know me from the fact that I was a development executive over at Disney for many, many years. Like, far too many years. I think it was like 9 years I was there. Under Jeffrey Katzenberg and finalizing it. So I also then was involved with TV animation at Disney. I've also I was a development executive over at Paramount Television Division. So both film, television, animation, I've got a little bit of everything and now web series, because I'm one of the directors for the LA Web Fest. And Laurie and I really going to talk to you guys a little bit more about that, because one of the things that executives are now being asked to do is to expand their horizons beyond just television or just feature films. So we'll talk a little bit about that. She's a real expert on it. Okay. All right, first of all, one of the things you guys may be wondering or not is how do we know if it's for TV movies? And I'm going to let Laurie start with this because it's a little easier in a way because there's more things that sort of point towards something in the
Before I do that, I'm just curious, how many people are here, if you know already, you may not, and that can change. How many interested in writing for TV? Okay, and then how many for film? That's about it.
Hey, I saw you guys.
Yeah, and then you're both, huh? You're both. Yeah. Okay, that's
How many of you guys have stuff that's like for the web?
Good. All right.
These people know.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Good. All right. So what are broadcasting cable networks looking for? Essentially, it's hard to throw them all together because broadcast networks right now are pretty desperate. And by broadcast, just so everybody knows, ABC, NBC, CBS, CW, and Fox. I don't include PBS in that. Because the PBS development process is so very, very different, and it has changed so much in the last 20, 30 years. At any rate, so broadcast right now has lost a lot of viewers to cable, and both broadcast and cable have lost a lot of viewers to Netflix and binge watching. How many of you watched Arrested Development in the last, okay. And watched them all through? Okay, binge watching. All right, so between Arrested Development, House of Cards, and Hemlock Grove, which are the three Netflix, there's also other models. There's the Amazon TV and YouTube and such. But right now, Netflix is really the leader in really blasting open what broadcast and cable networks are looking for. So when I say what are networks looking for in general, the main answer is if you are at any kind of network, you want to rival all of the other networks. You want to get people to watch your network. I mean, that is the basic answer. And you want whatever the content is that you're going to pick up to be TV history, to be an event, to be something that's going to get the highest ratings, to get people to watch it. Both cable and broadcast, and with Netflix, it's obviously the number of hits that are coming across. So you want that. You want to rival all the other networks that are within your competition. So, having worked at Women's Entertainment, we were always wanting to just completely destroy Oxygen and Lifetime. And I'm sure Lifetime wanted to destroy Oxygen and We. Okay, you get the idea. And if you're writing in any genre, then you know what networks, what cable networks you could target, and you need to see what they are all doing within their genres because they're watching each other. Another thing is they're looking for content that's going to flow easily from either their network into that transmedia platform. So lots of other additional information about characters and the scenery, the background, all of the stuff that you would put into your Bible as you create a series is stuff that later shows up on either a promotional website for that network or a site, either a Facebook site or a website itself for that show. So you're not only creating a series, you're creating an entire world that's going to be accessed on all of these, in this case, 2 screens, because by that I mean a television screen and then some sort of either a laptop, a tablet, or a mobile device. When we say 3 screens, it's, and what Kathie's going to refer to is the large screen at a theater that you go to, then on television, and then on a mobile device. So you really have to think through each one of those as you're developing your content, because executives are looking for the most bang for their buck. How can they get as much money on each one of those levels out of the content that you're creating? A lot of things that we see in what has just been announced in the upfronts. The upfronts are a time that just happened the last couple of weeks when the networks premiere, what they have had in development, what they're going to have in what was used to be the new fall season. That's sort of fallen by the wayside. Now most networks are developing content all year round, but they do need to show to advertisers what they've developed. And the upfronts, we're seeing a lot of having a major actor. Think of Kevin Bacon in The Following, this last couple months. We're going to see Blair Underwood in Ironside. We're going to see Greg Kinnear, in Rake. They're getting major actors to do an exclusive number of episodes to get people to watch. And then if the show does well, then they may renegotiate with that actor. Or they may go on with the show with another actor, or maybe that main character falls away and the rest of the individuals in the show take over. That sort of thing they're looking for, again, to get people to watch. It's luring viewers back to broadcast networks for traditional TV watching, and also looking for content that spans all generations. And I can talk about that a little bit later. But those are a few things. We see with broadcast networks, it has to embrace all generations, meaning the older folks and the younger folks. And in cable, a lot of niche audiences. You can do a lot more on cable, as we know, and in premium cable, you can do a lot more as far as nudity and violence. So that's sort of an overall, that's what broadcast and cable networks are looking for.
It's a little different in feature films. Majority usually of the story, when I read a script, and I can usually tell if my gut tells me if it's better for feature films or for television, is that in film, a majority of the story is going to take place over a prescribed amount of time. It could be a few hours. For a while, they're debating ourselves, but there used to be movies, low-budget movies, where it would take place in just a day. There would be other ones where it would just, what happens in one place in one day, and it was low budget. But it actually, car wash actually did quite well. So, we tend to look at the time period. It's usually prescribed time period. 2 hours, it could be a day, it could be a week, it could be a month. Titanic, okay? Boat sales, boat sales. It only took like a few days. Like maybe 4 days, 5 days. Hangover. So what happens in Vegas over a long weekend. Okay? It's not something you would do at home. Although, I would doubt that they would try. Sometimes they do. Did you guys see the recent movie, Company of the Key? It took place over about 10 days of trying to unravel what was going on. And so it's usually prescribed amount of time, whereas in television shows, it's shown the continuing life of, or the continuing saga of. Also, one thing that's very noticeable in feature films is that it's usually they have more major set pieces. In television, half-hour sitcoms usually only have 3 or 4 locations that you see the scene set in. A 1 hour, maybe you have like 6 places, 6 locations. But it's not the same thing as, say, the Bourne Identity or something, where you've got 4 or 5 major foreign cities, as well as Washington, D.C., and Taiwan all over the place. So, there's a lot more major set pieces in films. Usually it's a lot more reliant on having immediate acting talent that comes to mind. That's one of the things that we'll talk a little bit more about what we particularly look for as an executive when we're given a final script. What are we looking for when we're reading it? We'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's one of the things that comes into play. Also, in a feature film usually has some kind of definitive ending. A definitive, I'm not cutting it off by saying you can't do a sequel, because they'll always find a way to do a sequel if they can. sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but there is some sort of conclusion. And you know that, okay, we look for franchises out there. That's something we do look for. Just like Harry Potter or Twilight. Something that can kind of continue on so we can have more than 1 or 2 movies. I think they need to quit with him. Just a personal opinion. Film strips also usually have much more complex plotting that they stuff into the 2 hours. So that's another huge difference. But those are the major things that tell me when I'm looking at something, whether I'm doing it as a consultant or as an executive, on whether something should be more television program. Now, getting to what do we look for story-wise, when somebody comes in to pitch a project to us. I tend to look for things like the almighty Laurie. You guys get tired of hearing that all day today, but I do. To me, I can tell if somebody's really taking the time to know their story, is if they can tell a good log line, if they can concisely get that down in 1 or 2 sentences, and it's so compelling that I want to know more. That's one of the things when I pitch, especially story-wise. And also, I'd like to see characters that we can relate to, and that they are in maybe some kind of an unusual situation that maybe I haven't seen before. For me, the best storytelling, especially in movies, is always ordinary people in an extraordinary situation. Occasionally, we'll also see there's also the opposite, which is to have extraordinary people in ordinary situations. An example of that would be Forrest Gump or Raymond. They're pretty extraordinary people, and everybody revolves around them in an ordinary world and reacts to them. Usually, it's the ordinary person has to jump into the extraordinary situation, like Saving Private Ryan or Titanic, where it's just ordinary people having to deal with all of a sudden this terrible or horrific or challenging dilemma that they find themselves in. So that's just on the outset, when I'm listening to a pitch, that's the first thing that keys to my mind. As we go along, we'll tell you about some of the other things that we also look for.
Just to add to that, as far as characters, it's always, if you look at something like Everybody Loves Raymond, if he didn't have to live next door to the in-laws or to the parents, you would not have a show, essentially. So you usually have a situation where it's going to go on and on and on for weeks, whereas if that were a one-time idea for a movie, that'd be kind of, would that be a two-hour movie? Probably not. Right. Whereas the situation is such that we know as they continue to live their life, we can come back and watch it over and over and over. And we're interested in that character coming back into our lives versus just going one time to see a movie. So the character arcs are really important. Not that they aren't important in film, but when you're developing your Bible, you need to look at that entire series. It used to be up to 20 episodes for a year, a season. Now it's sometimes only 6 or 10, depending on what network you're working with. But you need to develop where that character's going. Writing for television, in my opinion, is, not that it isn't difficult to write a script for film, but you really do need to develop way beyond just the one-time story. And that one-time story that Kathie's talking about is also wonderful and great. But that's how we kind of can see what's the longevity, how far can this go. Lately, we've seen characters, to answer your ordinary and extraordinary situations, characters. A lot of characters, since The Sopranos, it began, this was from New York Magazine from about 3 weeks ago. They had a wonderful discussion that because of The Sopranos and Tony Soprano, he's damaged, he's flawed, and yet we love him. And we see it in Breaking Bad, we see it in Mad Men, We see these lead male characters that are bad, right? Yeah, they're not good people, but yet we watch them. We're fascinated to see how their lives unravel. And yes, we can do that in a movie also, but usually it's the one-time story about how maybe they took over the mafia, or how they became a distributor or whatever. And so that's something to look at, is this character arc, and also how many plot twists can be expanded over these series. Where do you want your vampires to go? Where do you want this group of young kids to go? That's where we would look at an idea and say there's not enough. It's a great idea, it's probably better as a film or a one-time idea. So that Bible that you complete, which is a complete background and scenario of your characters, your episode breakdowns, your main reason and situation premise for your series, all of that is really important to develop. And as an executive, I'm going to be looking at your idea, but I'm also going to be looking at that longevity of your idea. There's also timeliness. Development executives ask two questions. Why make this now? In other words, look at your idea, and if you can answer, why make this now? In other words, if you're doing a period piece, some random time in history, and it's set in the Wild West, let's say, and late 1890s, mid to late 1800s, 1900s, 1800s. It's early. I'm going to ask you, why should I show a Western now to the individuals that are watching television? I'm going to ask that question, and I think film executives would ask that question also. Why make this now, and who cares? So if you can answer those two questions, you're already well above, because that's going to come up in the pitch. Or at least the executive's going to be thinking, well, I don't know how I would sell a Western right now. I don't know how I would do that to the people that are watching TV. Westerns haven't done great in recent years. So it's why make this now, and then who would care? And if you can answer those two questions, you're already...
You can answer them convincingly.
Yes. Yes. So would you agree, Kathie? Is that sort of the same kind of...
You know, the main thing is that when I was an exec in the television division, it's like you need to be able, in that Bible and in your pitches, to give me a compelling reason to why people would come back every single week. Watch this. What is it about these characters and their interaction with the other characters, not just the major character, right? And that's just it. A lot of times I've seen Bibles where they'll spend 2 pages on the major character, and then they have like 2 sentences on everybody else. And it's not telling us enough about the interaction and how these other characters can add to the comedy, the drama, the conflict, how they can stir up the pot every week. And that's what we need to see is you guys need to give us a hint of what can come ahead. You know, the other thing too is now I think before it used to be you only had to do like 1 or 2 seasons. They would ask you, well, tell us what you see by the end of, where are these characters at the end of season 1 or the end of season 2. They're now asking for more than that. It's a minimum. I think maybe it's more like 5 seasons now. But they want to know. Because they want to. They need to have fodder. You need to lead us into that world. Even if it's just somebody who's living in store, I don't know. We need to feel that in that world there are all these endless possibilities for people to come back every week and be entertained and want to see that series. And that, in many ways, when you're talking about the television is sometimes hard to use, it is. Because it's your responsibility. You've got to create these characters and their world so that everybody will come back for years to see it. Feature films, usually you're only going to go see it once. And then you really like it, you go out and see it. You know, I think that television is much harder because you do have to be entertained every single week. And with all of the things going on the internet as well, there's too many choices. All of us as audience members, we have a lot of choices. We can lean in, we can lean back. We can go to the small screen, we can go to the big screen, we can do whatever, it's so easy to just click the button and say, we don't want to watch it. And there used to be, remember that when Laurie and I were at that stage in our careers where I remember people were saying, God, cable and satellite is coming in. And they were afraid of that. And now look at it. Now it's like, a lot of stuff on the internet now. So television, what she says is true. They are desperate. And if you guys can come in with something that's refreshing and has a twist on something that might be somewhat familiar, but really just spikes your imagination and gets that gut feeling that I always get when I read or see something or hear somebody giving attention. I get that little feeling in my stomach. I'm down.
If I could just add to that, and just give you an example of that. A lot of people say, well, every idea has already been done, and that's true. Every idea has already been done for film and television, but it's up to you to put a spin on that. When people come to me and say that, I say, all right, we had a lot of stuff in culture, we had television shows and literature and such about little witches, but we never, Sabrina and Hocus Pocus, and a lot of witch stuff. But we never had a little wizard. So when people say to me, every idea's been done, I use that example and go, well, at least someone went and went to the other side and the gender of a little magical being became a boy witch, and the rest is history. So don't listen to anyone that says it's already been done. In fact, I want to hear what you're going to do with an idea to make it what we used to call a high concept, and I kind of think that's overdone. But it's how to take what we already know and then add to it. I'll give you just a really quick example of what I like to look for when I'm looking for ideas. It's called the strange attractor. There's something attractive about it, but there's also something strange in that we know enough about, we've heard the story, but there's some item, some element that really piques my interest. For instance, if you come to me with an idea for a detective series, okay, there's how many millions of those in the history of TV, right? But if you come to me and you tell me that your detective, your main detective, has been wrongfully accused of murdering somebody or something happened in a case, and he's in jail, so he can't do his detective work because he's in jail, right? But he's mastered astral projection. So it looks like his body is in the jail, but he's out doing the work to free himself. Now I know it's far-fetched and that's not a really good idea, but that's an example of a strange attraction. There's something there that there's something there that I might, let's keep working with this. How can
I think that's why things like breaking down.
Right. Maybe it's a twin. Maybe it's a twin detective, and one stays in the jail, and the other one. You see what I'm saying? Okay. You see where I'm going? We're interested in that kind of, and that's something that would take an entire series to unravel. And then who knows that there's twins? Who knows this guy knows? You see where I'm going with this? There's a lot more depth to it than just what we say. There's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of good ideas. However, how many of them are ideas for a television show?
Well, I'm actually kind of, one of the things that the other things that I kind of look for when I know I'm looking at a feature film. Is budget. And I know you guys don't want to hear but that also is one thing that kind of sets apart movies too. It's something that's action-packed. It has a ton of set pieces, foreign locations, stunt work, large cast of characters, that kind of stuff. Chances are, don't try pitching it as a television show. It's not going to work. Now, I have those people that tell me about Jennifer that TV show, I forgot the name of it, Alias, yeah. They use stock footage. Everything was shot pretty much in the same stage. But, you know, and there are ways we can get around it. They wanted to do kind of a more, a low budget than that. But you guys have to think about if you're attracted to doing something that's action oriented. Are you going to be satisfied doing something that's a little bit contained? You know, like doing something that's more like a television show instead of doing something that's more like Low Identity or whatever. I think you also need to keep in mind how large a cast you have. Sometimes I say that, and I say, what about Lost? Yeah, I know. Tried juggling 20 characters at one time. Lost is sort of, I mean, it wasn't had J.J. Abrams. It had the involved. And those guys were magic on that. And I think most of us who were Lost fans will agree that it had time moments and it had some of the low moments too. Even though every season was not great. But you do have to think about those things. It just so happens that that particular showrunner had done movies before, and ABC at the time, I believe, was in fourth place on ratings for television. It was ABC, CBS, and NBC and Fox. And when Fox was beating them, the ABC said, "What are we going to do?" They were desperate, and this, you know, happened to pay off.
It was a dramatic version of Survivor.
And it was also
Really, I mean, Survivor had already done so well, and then they said, hey, we like watching people set somewhere in an exotic location on an island. Well, why don't we make that into a dramatic series? And that's sort of how that started.
yeah, that was the fact that Hawaii was the state of Hawaii was giving some really good tax incentives. As you know, because the TV show that I worked on was also shot in Hawaii. And it was kind of nice to tourism in Hawaii. But, you know, those kinds of things, you know, you can't always control that. And I don't say just do it for a certain place. You can if you want to. You know, that Lost was one of those little offshoots that, you know, I don't know if they're going to try and attempt to do that again. But one of the things you touched upon that was really interesting was the Indian people channels, which have things, you know, like the Showtime and the HBOs. Incredible stuff. You know, stuff that is award-worthy. Shows that, you know, series that really keep people glued to it and people are paid for it. So there is a lot of things that are starting to kind of filter over one to another. In fact, you guys, if you ever get a chance, you really should this afternoon go here for this workshop she's doing on adapting screenplays to a novel. There are a lot of writers who are looking at those things. Yeah, but she'll talk a little bit more about that this afternoon. But there's a blending that's starting to go. There's a lot of crossover going on, and you guys really need to kind of keep that in mind. Let's see. Okay. Other thing I have to look for is those audience appeal and demographics. Future film and sector, that's a huge thing. I also have to look for what is the rating, especially when I worked at Disney. Is this something that stays at Disney, or is this something that goes over a Touchstone division? Is it something that that can be shown in later years? Disney usually does that most of their animated films, but they're starting to, you know, think about, do we want to release some of the things? And what they'll do it is in other reincarnations. That's how we have like the second version of Parent Trap and a second version of Freaky Friday. Some of which were good, some of them, you know, weren't. So they're always kind of thinking along those lines, you know, are these things that are appropriate for the audience that we have? And at Disney especially, they were, you know, when you have that kind of name, you got to protect it. And, you know, Laurie knows the Disney brand is like, it's safe. It's like, you know, they don't want you to do anything to, you know, to just really love the Disney name. And so we had to be especially careful about that. They even made us go to classes when they had child psychologists, and we have to listen to, these are the things that we should try not to do, and these are the things that we should try to encourage. And it was really great for us to be able to hear that, so we can get a better handle on how we evaluate material, and whether, when somebody came in and did a pitch, whether it was appropriate or not, or the audience didn't like it.
I want to just go back, a good example of a piece of content that didn't work as a film, and it probably should have been, in my opinion, could have been, but maybe not, for some reasons, and that is Behind the Candelabra, which was just on earlier last weekend, the Liberace biopic. HBO, Soderbergh, the director, could not sell it to any studio. It spent years selling this, trying to get this thing sold, and every studio said it was too gay. HBO, which you had mentioned, they recognize, oh yeah, there's some content here that we think our audience is going to be interested in. And it's been a huge success. I mean, great ratings and
Subscription to HBO jumped up in the 2 weeks before that was shown. Jumped up tremendously.
Right. So that's an example of, here's an individual, it's a story, it's a biopic of an individual who's been dead for 30 years. And there's individuals who are 25 and younger, maybe 30 and younger, who do not know who he is. Yet the generations before, would know who this person was. Huge entertainer. But then HBO looked at it as the story that's involved and made it into this piece that anyone could relate to, whether you knew the person or not. But that's an example of why something would go to cable rather than a film. And I bet there's some of those companies are probably a little bit upset that they said no because it didn't quite well. And to speak to branding, all cable networks will consistently rebrand themselves, and that's something to really look for as content developers, as writers, creators. If a network is reworking their brand, say something like Sci-Fi, which went from SCIFI to SYFY. And with that, a whole, right now, True TV is going through a complete branding. Weather Channel, complete branding. History Channel. Now, you may say, but you may be interested in the Mayan culture, and you've developed an entire series about this. History Channel, maybe, Nat Geo may be interesting. And so knowing how these cable networks are branding themselves can only help you as you're pitching to development executives and to network executives directly.
Right, some of those channels are actually sister. They're partnered in a different umbrella. They're separate channels. They are like sisters to another channel. And people work back and forth between them. So you never know. You may pitch it to one, and they'll say, we maybe can't do this, but so-and-so, Nat Geo might want to do it. So keep that in mind, too.
Yeah, definitely. Know that if a show, what used to be called a flagship show, if the show does really well, say Mad Men on AMC, which, by the way, was developed because before Mad Men appeared on AMC, and I know this because I was in Cablevision at the time, the regular viewership was 70 years old because they were showing old movies. Okay, so how are we going to get a younger viewer? And how are we going to get folks even 50 to watch this network? And so they thought, well, let's develop a show that takes place when the individuals who are watching, who are in their 50s and 60s, were in their 20s, when it was actually happening, they'll probably relate to it. And they made a great choice, did it, and now it's gone beyond so that all ages are watching because the content is so good. So if you look at networks and you look at what their flagship shows are, what are the big shows on networks, and if they're doing well and you have something that could be what is called a companion piece, in other words, if you have a half-hour show, then they're always looking for another half-hour show that's similar, much like what you just said, Kathie, something that complements, not between networks, but also on the network. So you may have some similar kind of format, and that's an automatic way to begin your pitch and say, look, I know, I mean, I don't know what number it is right now, but it's pregnant and dating. Not kidding.
I'm not the demographic, sorry.
I know. So now we've gone from, Teen Moms, which did amazing for MTV, and talk about rebranding itself. MTV, I mean, complete rebranding.
Yeah, there's no more reason.
I worked at it. I worked at MTV when, Billy Idol was around. When it was music. And so you can see how it went into, now you can see how Teen Moms leads to pregnant and dating. I mean, you can just see the evolution of where reality has gone, and that we could do an entire discussion on that. But knowing what networks are doing will help you with your ideas. This ad week, which is TV week, I just brought a couple of these. You can actually get, here's Chiller. If you're doing any horror stuff, there's a whole network on Chiller. They're new, they're looking. It tells you the demographic, tells you what they're looking for. Hello, if that's what you're writing, know everything you can about that. E is rebranding, Scripps Networks, HGTV, all of these, Great American Country. Weather Channel, I cannot express how much they are looking for content to continue to go with storm chasers and all. People will watch weather. I mean, we know this, just God bless everybody in Oklahoma, but we know this when the networks preempt everything with what has been happening the last couple of weeks, unfortunately, with tornadoes. But the high drama of what weather does is what Weather Channel's looking to do to make that into a dramatic series. So when you know that kind of stuff, it helps. So it's all information that's available to you.
Well, almost half of the content on the TV and cable now, reality in some form. And so, you can't deny it. There are a lot of people that will do reality shows, but hey, people are watching it. And if they're watching it, people will continue making it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but for a while people continue to do it. And a lot of these reality shows are branching off of that and saying, yeah, why don't we just run with this? And we don't have anything to lose because there are literally, if you do a Google on storm chasers, there's like, I don't know, at least 150 different things that come out of different companies of people who do storm chasing. I didn't know such as Blue or interested in this. I've never said because it's totally out of my realm, but I can't help but be fascinated by seeing this. Now, will I see episode 3? I don't know that, but it is interesting enough that I probably will see it a couple times. But it is something that's totally out of the ordinary world.
Duck Dynasty. I wish I was making just a fraction of what those guys are making. Yeah, absolutely. I know. But to that, with reality taking over networks, eventually, in my opinion, what I've seen, is that people will want. I mean, that's sort of fast food. You eventually want to turn back to nutrition. We see this with Downton Abbey. We see this with the success of Downton Abbey. It just took everyone, America, by storm, in that they want solid, period piece. There were stories involved, and all, just involved soap opera. And I think the networks are now going to be looking, the American networks are going to be looking at that model and coming back with this sort of nutritious, really good serial dramas.
Well, they used to have, during part of the 70s and a lot of the 80s, they used to have miniseries.
Yeah.
And they were wonderful, and everybody would be spellbound. They would actually watch Roots for a week, or what's the Australian? For a week, and every night, and everybody was talking about it in the water cooler the next day. And they don't have that kind of thing because they said,
Well, now it's binge watching.
Yes.
Now you can just watch all of the Thornbirds whenever you want. And so that's why miniseries and TV movies are gone.
But I have heard that dramatic, they are looking for more dramatic things than they are. Doesn't mean don't go for the comedy, because they'll even laugh at this.
Absolutely. That's where I was going. Sorry, I was going. With all the reality, personally, I don't think I'm ever going to watch Pregnant and Dating. I don't have any interest. Eventually, you move back to movies. You know, it's like, okay, this was reality on TV. Let's go see what's going to be released this weekend, right? And that's where we need to find something that's going to again raise that consciousness, where people will actually pay $8.50, $10.50 a ticket plus everything else to go see something.
Well, one of the things too that I think is important for you guys to know is that as execs, we have to go back and sell. If we like what we hear, if you pitch to us and we read your script and we like it, we've got to go then and try and sell it. And part of the concern that I come across in losing features is, we have this huge creative group. At an average studio, you usually have like maybe 4 creative execs or development execs. You have at least 3 or 4 VPs. You have at least 1 or 2 executive vice presidents. Then you have the president and the CEO. And occasionally they'll even throw in the head of marketing in there. And occasionally they have casting out. And I go on doing that. But the creative group just gets bigger and bigger. You've got to convince all these people that the picture or the script that I read is worth us taking a chance and spending in feature films, probably anywhere from $40 million up to $200 million. That's a huge responsibility that we have. Now, a lot of it depends too, especially when it gets up there into the stratosphere, above the 40 million mark. They're going to want to know immediately, is there someone attached? And by having an attachment, they mean, is there a top-notch director or top-notch actor or actress? The other thing is, they're going to want to know, can it be franchised? Because that's almost one of the first questions that they will ask. Okay, so do you think we can franchise this? Sometimes you can. Or sometimes they force it. But those are the things that we have to answer to. It's not just us saying yes or no. It's whether we know that we can convince somebody, whether we're going to take that chance and do it. I would say, if somebody once asked me, well, hear all these pitches, and I do. I would hear at least 5 or 6 pitches a day. I would read at least 25 to 40 scripts, 25 to 30 scripts a week. I had to stop at the because I couldn't go anymore. But it was, you read a lot, you pitches, and I would say maybe 1 out of there would I feel strong enough that I would say in the creative meeting on Monday, I read, or I heard this pitch, or I read this script. I think we should put it on the list for all of us to read, because I feel strongly about it. And then I would have to pitch why I felt. First of all, I would have to do a log line. And hopefully you guys did the log line. And we're going to talk a little bit more about log lines too, but it's important that you guys have that strong log line, because that becomes the calling card phrase for your script. Now, they have something, they have a program now that you can subscribe to where everybody keeps track of all hot scripts that all the hot writers are working on. And the agents and the managers, and they take their writers' material and they have to have a log line and put it on there. Who the agent is, who the writer is, and all this. And execs and producers who subscribe to this service will go in there and take a look. Oh, you know what? Look at that one's coming out in 2 months. Okay, keep track of that, and they'll tell you about it. That one looks interesting. Take note of that one and keep calling that agent. We want to be one of the first ones to get it. This is how it works. And that's why when we tell you, get a good model. We are not kidding you. So when I have to go in, it's a lot easier for me if you guys have already provided a good model. When I'm reading a script, one of the things is, that really throws me off, and I think you probably come across it too. I cannot believe when people are so, they've spent all this time and energy creating this wonderful world, they didn't take time to proofread. I have colleagues who basically, if they have more than two or three typos, they don't even bother going anything. That's just a small thing, but what I look for when I read the script is convincing plot points. I want it to be a page turn. I don't want it to be a 2010 read. A 2010 read is what I'm just talking about. I read 20 pages, and then sometimes I put to the end just to see how it ended. I don't like to do that. I would rather, but if it's a page turner, then I know at least that the writing is decent. And by the way, when your script comes in, don't look at it as, well, are they going to buy it? The more important thing is, do they want to do business with me? The two things I will always look for when I read a script. Is it something that's appropriate for whatever company I'm working for? The second thing is this a writer that has talent and we want to do business with them later on down the line? So every script has to be what I call a calling card script. And more importantly, when I read the script, can I visualize it? What are the kinds of things that you look for when you read television?
And same thing, we're looking for someone who never have a one script. Always have 3 or 4 ideas, maybe more, because we're looking for the next Shonda Rhimes, we're looking for the next Josh Whedon, we're looking for the next David E. Kelly, all the way back to Aaron Spelling, the showrunner. If I see that you have potential, and this first idea is great, and then what else do you have? And you say, that's all I have. I don't care how good that first idea is, I've dropped you, because that shows me that you're an amateur. You're not really playing the game. So even if you have to make it up, say I've got 2 or 3 other ideas, okay? Seriously, because I can't invest money in someone in just one idea. If you have one really good idea that you're married to and you cannot change, go do it for the web. Go and produce it on your own for the web and see what happens. But if you want to work with networks and you want to be seen as the next showrunner, then you need to have a body of work. And that's Bibles for 3 or 4 at least series that are completely fleshed out. That's going to impress me. That's somebody I want to work with, and prove it to me that you're going to be flexible, you're going to work with the network, at least to begin. Once you establish yourself, then we'll let you do whatever you want, because we're making money off of you. But that beginning is like working. It's like getting a job. It's when you start a job, you do what the job wants you to do. You do well, then they let you do things beyond that. So this really is that same kind of thing. So yeah, I'm looking for talent that's going to last.
I think we probably should also talk about the other thing. I know several of you aren't. It's not just going to pitch to producers and execs for TV or movies, but some of you I think are planning on pitching to agents and managers too, right? So
then you definitely need a body of work.
That's going to be the first thing they'll probably ask you is what the work you have, because they need to know that you're not a one script wonder. They need to know that you're going to have product to sell for them to sell. And like you said, if you have to, you can sort of slide by with my line saying, well, yeah, I've got a couple of other things. One of them is an outline, and the other one I'm halfway through, or something like that. But you can kind of slide by with that. But really, you guys really have to think about having the body of work and being a serious writer, because there's too many of you guys out there. And one of the things that, in fact, one of the things I found out the other day is that, there's TV writing programs, which we're going to talk about too. A lot of them now, if you get through the first cut, they will, you send in a sample script and they get asked you, the first cut, and if you make it, they now are asking for a second or third script. It would be terrible, even though yours may have been one of the best scripts they read. If they ask for a second or third script and you don't have it, they're
And all of the people that are here, that are taking pitches, whether they're development executives for film and television, or the agents and managers, they're playing hardball. They're working. They want you. They need you. They need your idea. Okay, they're not just here like, what I hear a lot when I work with a lot of writers, that's what I do, and writers will say, well, if I sell this, then okay, then I might go and work on the show. No. That agent, that development executive, those individuals, they're not interested in that person. They want the person that is an actual writer, creator, producer, whatever it is that you're offering, that you're working professional. It's not if, it's when. Okay, so none of this, oh, if they pick it up, then maybe I'll develop it. Don't waste their time, don't waste your time. Have it ready, as Kathie says. Have those projects ready to go. That's what these people are looking for. They're not playing around. This isn't a hobby for them. This is their job. They need to find the next Mad Men, and the next Breaking Bad, and the next Arrested Development. At least TV and for film, same thing. They need to find the next Harry Potter, et cetera, et cetera. And they are looking, which, by the way, if you're writing anything within that sort of magical, mystical, everyone, from books to television to film, is looking for the next Harry Potter, the next Hunger Games. You write something like that, your career is set. And they are looking for it.
40% of the material in feature films is our books or plays, or the movies come from someplace other than the script. So keep that in mind. So if any of you who are novelists as well, of course we're going to talk about going back to novels and movies anyway.
I just want to can I ask the plan to hand this out? I just have a few of these, and you can get my card afterwards, but just so we don't miss this. It's what those executive notes really mean. And it's from the Hollywood Reporter, literally 5/24, so it's brand new. And it says, if it says something like, maybe we can get into this faster in some aspect of the script, it means it's boring. So you'll see what little notes, what executives write. This is television. I think film is pretty similar. But you'll see what it really means. And if you don't get a copy, I didn't know how many folks would be here. You can email me and I'll email you a copy. But
maybe you should just give them our email.
I have cards and stuff.
I don't have cards, but if you ever want to email me, it's Kathie, Kathie, at Kathie, Fong, Yoneda, Yoneda.com.
So how do we, I think we're I'm sorry?
Kathie, Kathie, at Kathie, Fong is Fong, Yoneda, Yoneda.com. And when you do, put it in the subject line, put Great American Village Fest. Get a lot of scale.
It is what those executive notes really mean. It's from the 5/24/13 issue.
You might actually be able to Google it.
You should probably even be able to get it online. But if you don't, I have one more copy. And just one more thing. Anything that appears, this just appeared, Entertainment Weekly, this actually right now, 99 ways to spend it. Your summer must-sees, both film, television, music, etc. Know that anything that's in this magazine has been developed about 1.5 to 2 years ago. So it helps for you to know what's going to be out there, but you need to do those tracking boards that Kathie mentioned. tvtracker.com is great. Oh, Entertainment Weekly. I'm just using this as an example. Everybody thinks, oh, this is going to be hot right now. It's over. If it's in here, it's over. All right? So just know that, and all the executives know that. So they're looking beyond this. And that's where, for you to begin to educate yourself and know what executives know. They don't know much more than you. And we have the handout that we have has a list of synopsis.com, which looks at digital, kids, international. Take a look at that. They're free e-newsletters every day in your mailbox. You will get this information. Shame on you if you don't know this information when you're pitching. I'm not kidding. those executives you're pitching to know everything that's on here, and they know what they're internally looking for. So educate yourselves before you go in. Don't be a little Bambi and say, oh, I didn't know that there's a new show with Greg Kinnear. What are you talking about? When it's been everywhere, okay? So
Worse yet is don't say who's Greg Kinnear.
Exactly. You know, so I mean that's what we're here for, is to help you arm yourself before you go in. There's no excuse in the internet world right now that you cannot know as much as these development executives from that outside information. They know what they want internally. There's no way to know that. But this information that we've given you, and the other, you want to talk about the other ones, Kathie? Sure. The other programs are fantastic.
Okay, there are, especially for those of you who are interested in television, the Screenwriting Fellowship programs are wonderful. Writers on the Verge with NBC and Disney ABC TV writing program. Let's see, Fox Writers Initiative, Warner Brothers has one. CBS has a great one, they have a mentoring program, and Nickelodeon has a writing program. All of them are excellent, and you get mentored. If you get into that program, just as a for instance, Jen Grisanti, who's somebody else that you should go to her workshop this afternoon. She's going to be talking about what it's like, you know, to get yourself prepared if you're going to write or be staffed on a TV show. She'll tell you what it's like and what is required of you. But it's amazing. She teaches Writers on the Verge. She teaches that program. And I would say the day that these people get out of that program, already out of the, I think, 12 people, 4 or 5 of them already have agents. 3 or 4 of them already are staffed on shows. And there are several others that also have managers, and they show those pilots that these guys come up with from that program. They pass it around first, of course, at NBC, but then they get passed around at other places too. And those people almost inevitably end up being a success and being on staff within a year or 2 of that program. So if you can try and get into those programs, those are amazing. So all the info's on there. There are Pitch Fests coming up. This is not the only one. I happen to think this is the most writer-friendly one, and it certainly has been around for a long time. There's others here. There's also Virtual Pitch Fest. I have not, and none of my clients have done Virtual Pitch Fest. But I have heard one of my colleagues said that their clients did Virtual Pitch Fest and really thought it was worthwhile. So for those of you who live out of town, if that's a better option for you, look into that. And also, Story Expo is coming up at the beginning of September. And TIP is coming up, I think it's the 3rd weekend. And there's one that I may not have put on here, which is the Screenwriters World West, and it's going to be held at the Hyatt Regency in Central City, and that's the very last weekend of September. September's a heavy pitch festival. But it's great because it shows you how a lot of these companies are being able to find material and find writers. So it is something for you guys to consider, and I know it's a lot of money, but I also look at it this way. No matter what business you're in, you had to take the time and the money to school yourself, get yourself in college, and to get the information necessary to perform that job. And as a writer, you guys have to sort of do the same thing, invest in yourself. I mean, coming here is a huge first step, but it's not the only step. And that, to me, it's really important that you guys understand that and that you guys believe enough in yourself to do this. It's not the only way to do it, but it's probably one of the best ways. And the networking that you guys will get is really helpful too.
There's also NYTVF, New York Television Festival, which is open to everybody. If you submit and you're chosen, you're given automatically a development deal, and you're seen by agents and such. It's a great program. So take a look at that. Just NYTVF, NY Television Film Festival.com. And there's also NAPTI, National Association of Television Programming Execs, NATPE.org. They have a pitch fest also. So that happens earlier in the year. But those are two that are specific just television that you can also submit. And I've had a few of my writer clients, students, win and have gone on to amazing development stuff. One's on the staff of Nurse Jackie right now. We have a couple other folks that have been on writing staffs from that. So they're great. It's a great opportunity.
Well, before we do the Q&A, what's one piece of advice you want to give them about the vision you're going to be doing?
Be yourselves. Literally, we want to know if we're going to work with you, if we like you. It's nothing. Don't be nervous. I know you will be, but they need you. They're looking, instead of oh, please buy my idea, it's, I have a really good idea that's perfect for your network, or perfect for your agency, or perfect for, etc. Turn it around to that confidence level and say, and here it is, and then begin your pitch. So have a really good, no fear of success in this room. No fear of success. You will pitch your idea, not if, but when. And you're not trying, you're actually here, you're doing this. So when it gets picked up. So I'd say turn that confidence level up.
One piece of advice that I would give is, it's great if you try to make a personal connection. And that is, sort of similar to what she says, but just to give you a couple of stories of pitches that I heard that impressed me so much is, there was a woman who pitched a story about a teenage girl who was dying of cancer, and her parents were getting a divorce. And her brother was sort of by the wayside because the parents were so busy focusing on her husband and dying, and they couldn't agree with one another. There was this fracture in the picture. There was a break in the family, and so what she wanted to do is she wanted to find a way, as her last dying wish, was to have her family come back together. And so she decided she wanted to have somebody help her create a game. And the story was so compelling when this woman told it, and I finally just asked her, I said, did this happen to you? And she said, it didn't happen to me personally, but I'm a social worker, 41 North, which is the pediatric cancer unit at Melbourne at the hospital there. So this is a woman who who's an advocate for these kids during their last days. And that's how she came up with the idea. But that stuck in my mind. Another one, an agent told me, and you're not supposed to do it, but people sometimes send in all these letters, please be my agent. And this guy sent in a letter, even though you're not supposed to, and said, and just put on there, this is about a little elevator pitch about a conspiracy within the FBI and how they were going to try and overturn the government and everything. And the very last sentence I put down there, my name is so-and-so, and I'm a retired member of the FBI. And she just said, okay, I got to take a look at this, because this guy probably knows what he's talking about. So those are two examples of how just with one sentence, being able to you can make like a personal connection, whatever your film idea or television idea is, to what they might need online. So that personal connection really helps. So I will open up the questions. If you guys can just line up behind them. And if you guys have did you all give Diana your sheets of paper, the little cards, and you're drawing too?
All right. Hi, my name is Jason Simon, I'm a screenwriter. I was wondering, as far as nowadays they like to roll out films so much and really broad release. And I was wondering, are the days gone of genre films that you can do a smaller budget? Do they always look for a big budget? And genre films just because they know they're going to have to spend so much money on advertising, and it's not worth it for them to do, say, a $10 to $20 million genre film.
I know with studios, I know that most studios do have a division that is really for smaller films, for more independent films. And I know that a lot of the studios still acquire independent films, which is why they all do Sundance or do these other festivals to try and acquire the smaller films, the special films. They may not have, maybe they see something that they feel is quite special about it, that maybe they wouldn't see anything else that is on their way. What's nice about that is that if you do it independently yourself and the studio picks it up, then they have to take care of all the distribution, and you're sitting pretty because you've already made it for so independent film, I'm a big supporter of independent film. I really appreciate somebody who's taken the time, even though it's might be smaller in scope, doesn't mean it doesn't mean that it doesn't have as much work or not more than a lot of what's out there. When you look at small films like In the Sunshine, the Full Monty, the year that it came out, was the highest percentage grossing film of the year. It was made for, I believe, $300,000.
Oh, you turn it up.
Grossed almost, I think it was something like $289 million. So, and films can do quite well. So don't look for it. They will look for it. But there's always an acquisitions department. We always do this for you. Okay, next.
Thank you.
I think people can't hear you in the back, so a little close, no. The people in the back can't hear you.
My name is Kathie, and I'm curious, because you have great examples about the longer-term history of drama and the movie studies and drama. Are there any advice for comedy pitches or in the developed world, and things that really work true or more specifically for comedy, that you might for advice?
Specifically for comedy?
Yeah.
Right now, the comedy, we saw the last 2 seasons was pretty much run by female showrunners, lots of female comedians. That was the trend. However, most of them have dropped off. Whitney, Two Broke Girls is okay, that sort of thing. That's been the trend, so you have to really look at that. And I think that the networks did the best with signing a lot of new female showrunners. Amy Schumer's the latest now. I think that's kind of peaked, so you kind of have to look at that trend. It's either that or these traditional showrunners that have been around, the 2.5 guys, these guys that have been around forever. And so comedy right now, no one really knows what's going on. Because it's so hard to program for the entire nation and generations. Remember, with television, it's the older and the younger. If you can get, one of the best examples is The OC, was the first show that did that. The attractive parents had their storylines, and the kids had their storylines. Smash does the same thing. Glee, to some degree. You got the teachers, the older teachers, and you got the kids. If you can find a comedy that can combine and drama, that can combine those generations, then you're hitting everyone that's watching. So that tends to be sort of just a denominator you go against.
Enjoy the discussion. I always struggle with the issue of demographics. Different script says, well, who's the same yet? I want to say anyone with $9 on top. TV show, Breaking Bad. Imagine you're the guy pitching this to the executive and you say, who's going to watch this? How do you know what do you say?
You go on the other shows that are similar to your shows and see who's watching those shows. So if you, at the point that Breaking Bad came out, there weren't, like I said, Sopranos was about the only one where it was sort of the lead guy was a bad guy, or not your traditional all-American good person in society. So if you look at the trends and you say now that you're writing something that has that anti-hero kind of lead, then you can go back and say the same people that are watching Breaking Bad would watch your show.
Okay, but how specific do they want you to answer that question?
Just what I just said.
Okay.
Pretty much what's already been tested. If other people are, if other shows are being watched and your show is similar but different, then you already have that group of people that will probably test it, probably see what's going on, and then hopefully it will take off from there. So you go on doing the history, the research of what your genre is about.
The other thing to do too is if you want to have a physical, kind of imagine a physical face of who's watching the show, look at the commercials. Whoever is buying the products are probably the same people watching the show. Okay?
Hi, my name is Karen, and you guys are talking about television and you guys are talking about movies. So what about the made-for-television movies? Do you guys have any advice on that? Or anything? I don't know.
You know, what I would suggest doing, first of all, there are some that, like Lifetime, Hallmark Channel,
That's it.
those are the ones, that's basically, they're the ones that are looking at that. They may not necessarily be the only ones. I understand too that the gospel channel, which is now called the Great Movie Channel, they didn't want to get rid of the initials. It's now the Gospel Music Channel, it's now the Great Movie Channel. They're looking at movies too, although, as you can tell from that, it's probably going to be something that has face to it. So I would suggest that, is there some way that you can make your movie more of a feature movie? Because the other thing is if you have something that's a special event, like an HBO thing, like an Liberace thing, they're going to need something that really has what they call legs, and people are going to want to watch it, like it's a must-see event. That's the only other way that you're going to get something on television. Otherwise, you really should think about, is this something that I can do on a larger scale and maybe have a better chance as a feature film? Okay? Thank you.
My name is Jake. Regarding the series box, I've seen one or two examples, including I think it was the original series box was back then, and the series box was do you have any specific templates or forms that you would recommend taking a look at? Or?
There's a wonderful resource that if you take my card, I'll send you the link.
Okay.
It has a gazillion examples of Bibles, pilot episodes, both Canadian and American, both past and present, and some that haven't been picked up. But you get a really good idea. Bibles were really hard to find for a very, very long time. And it wasn't until Freaks and Geeks, the Bible for Freaks and Geeks, was on the web that I even had something. Every showrunner I've ever worked with in my entire career keeps it to themselves. But now it's out there. And the Freaks and Geeks Bible, if you can get it and you can find it, it is the best example to this day of a Bible you'll see. But this particular website that I have, if you want to just send me an email, I'll get it
We're
for
going to
you.
have to cut this off after this next person because they're telling me in the back, oh, it's getting close to 10:30, so I'm really sorry.
I was wondering how networks or how you guys would react to shows that had a lot of children in the cast, like budget-wise.
Is it a children's show?
No, a show that's more of a suspense show with implications.
Okay,
that
what
are
network or
real.
cable channel do you see it on? That's not my focus.
It would be very fancy. Something that would require a lot of children actors, and their budget implications would actually know about going into something like that.
Right there is, see what it is that parents aren't going to want to watch something where the main characters are all children, okay? And if it's, is it a drama?
Yeah.
Okay, well then, you know what, it's not going to go on until 8 or 9 o'clock earliest. So they're not going to want to have something that they traditionally, I don't know whatever, but traditionally, the 8 to 9 o'clock hour is when you would show a family show. And probably, if it's mostly children, it may be not the appropriate thing for them. It's going to be hard to find sponsors.
Very much. There's a reason why, and I don't mean to, I'm sure it's a good idea, but there's a reason, sorry.
The only other thing I was thinking was maybe CW because of Nikita, the way that Nikita.
But children, are you talking 10, 12 years old?
No.
Well, then you're talking young adults.
Young adult, I'm talking.
Well, that's different. That's very, very, very
Okay,
different.
sorry. I just think of anyone under 18 as.
No, children are like 3 to 10. Young adult, you're doing young adult. which is-
CW is the
Right,
channel.
very commercial, no problem.
And if it's something that's a little less risque than Gossip Girls, then you can try, like the Disney channel.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming in, and we wish you the best on the kitchen tomorrow.
Yes, good luck.